Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining the Castles of Burgundy, the card game. So this is what the card game looks like set up. I've set up the game for 2 players. All of this stuff is for 1 player. All this stuff is for another. In your games, you'll probably take a little bit more space for each player, but I'm just trying to fit it on the screen. So this game plays very similarly to the board game. I will assume that you know the board game. If you don't, that's okay. You'll still understand how this game plays by the end of this video, hopefully. Each player gets dealt 2 cards from that deck. They will use those 2 cards merely for the die symbol on the top, not for all the other stuff. So these cards are the same as these cards. The game will last for 5 rounds, with there being 6 turns in each round. So what a turn looks like is choosing one of the dice. So this guy only really has a choice of a 5. So choosing a 5, putting that card to the side. We'll just put that up there for the moment. The 5 means he can pick up the card that's next to the 5. It doesn't matter what that card is, and that card goes straight into his building area. Notice that you can only have a maximum of 3 projects there at any one time. The next player will do the same with a 2 or a 5. There's nothing available at the 5 spot, so he'll take that one into his building area. That costs him that card. Now for the next turn, each player will take 1 more card. So the card they didn't choose in the previous round stays in their hand, and they get a new card. So he's got a 3 or a 5. So he might as well just use his 3 to get another card. Notice at the beginning of the game, they're really just using the numbers to get cards. This guy only has 5s, so he can't do anything about that. Now, I neglected to grab this card before, but because this guy was the start player, this guy got 1 of these cards. If there are more players, the next person down the line would get 2 of them, then 3 of them. So what that card would allow is to turn one of these, so he'll play that, into a 6 or a 4. And he thinks he might turn that into a 4. Then we go to the next round. Each player gets 1 card again. So a 2 or a 5, the 2's been taken, the 5's been taken. So there's nothing he can do. He doesn't have any of these cards to be able to up or down what his cards can do. The next action he could do is spend the die to action or build one of these 2 buildings. The problem is that these 2 buildings need a 6 and a 4. He only has a 2 and a 5. So that is not available to. The next thing he could do is he could sell goods. So selling goods, he would have to use the 2 because this is his goods. If he had more than 1 of this shade good, he would sell all of that shade. When sold, they would go next to this card on the right-hand side and will give points at the end of the game. In addition to that, for each card that he sold, he would take 1 silver into his bank, and he also receives the first player card. So this guy was the first player, he has this, but when you receive it that way up. With this card, the player who has this at the end of the round becomes the beginning of the next round of start player. So the start player kind of stays the same. We stay in the same order for the whole round. Whoever has this at the end of the round will become the start player. He could spend 1 of these 2 cards to restock his workers. He doesn't have any workers at the moment, so he thinks it might be a really good idea to do that. And he'll spend the 2, and what that does is that allows him to restock 1 or 2 workers. Now what that means is if he had 1 worker, he'd be restocking 1 more. If he had 0, which he has at the moment, he would restock 2. The other thing he could have done is take 1 more silver from the supply. This guy is showing a 4 and 5. He's going to use that 4 to get the 3rd card. They take a card each. We keep going. This guy can use his 1 to grab that card. This guy can't go into this pile anymore because he's got 3 here, but he has a 1, which means he can start building or build that. So when you actually build the card, that's when you get the stuff on the white area. So he's just built a watchtower, which means he can take 1 extra point from the supply, and they live on the left-hand side of this map. You'll notice that the brown cards have vastly different things on them, and so you'll need to just have a look and kind of make sense of what the little bit in white is talking about. Okay, and we send out another card to each player. This player has a 6. So what he's going to do with that is build his farm area. And what that allows him to do is to take one of these 2 cards over here. What you're looking for is combinations. So you actually want, he's got a pig already, which means he doesn't actually want that pig. He wants to have the different animals. There are 4 different animal types. You will get 4 points if you have 4 different animals, 2 points if you have 3 different animals, and 1 point for 2 different animals. And that's for each set. So if you have 2 of every animal, you're getting 8 points for that. If you have 2 of one animal and only 1 of each of the others, you're only getting 4 points. Whereas if you have 2, 2, 1 and 1, you're getting 4 points for the group of 4 and 1 point for the 2 different animals. Okay, back over to this player who has a 5 or a 1 to play with. So he can't build any of his elements. He can't take that because that's a 6. He only has a 5 and a 1, and he doesn't have any guys. But what he can do is score this. So he will take that good with the 5. For that, he takes 1 silver from the supply because he only sold the 1 card. And he takes the first player card. And from the next round, he'll be first player unless his player does something similar. And there's 1 more card each, and this will be the 6th turn. And what he might do is use one of these to turn that 5 into 6. Just be aware with those, a 6 and a 1 are considered next to each other as well. So he plays that to be able to pull this card in. What's going to happen with the C area cards when one is actually built, he will get to take one of these 2 cards into his lineup of goods to then be sold at a later stage. This player has a 1 or a 5, neither of which help here. So what he might do is use one of these cards, it doesn't really matter which one, he'll use that one, to take a silver. Now he's got 3 silver, so what you can do with the 3 silver is turn that in to pull 3 extra cards, and then that allows you to either grab one of the cards to put down there to be built later, or to use one of the cards as the number to be able to build the element that you have already down here. And he thinks he might throw this one down. The other 2 cards just go to the bottom of the stack or the discard pile. You probably won't get through a stack of cards, so don't worry too much about that. So we've come to the end of the first round, which means that changes. I'll tell you about that in a moment. This player has the first player token, so this card gets turned over and he is now the first player until it gets switched out again. If there were any cards left in that display, they would be discarded. We then pull out 7 more cards. The way these cards get put out, by the way, this is the same as the beginning of the game, is on a 2-player game, there are 7 cards coming out, and they go straight down for the first 6, and then the 7th card goes next to whatever the number is. So that's a 6, that needs to go up on the 6. If you were playing a 3-player game, there would be 10 cards, and so the first 6 do that, and then the next 4 would do exactly what this card did. And if you're playing a 4-player game, there are 13 cards, so the first 2 rows come out just like the first row did, and then we place the 13th card as this one was placed. I do apologise, I've been playing slightly wrong through the first half of this game. Each player should have been dealt 6 cards, and they're then going to draw from their own personal pile. That way you keep track of how many turns there are in this round, and you must use all of the cards. So the last card, you'll only have the choice of 1, you won't have the choice of 2. I do apologise. Once you have 3 of the same type of building built, you will gain this. So this is talking about the brown building. So once I've got 3 brown buildings, you'll gain this, which will give you a point at the end of the game. You would also gain one of the things on the back of the phase card. So you notice that the phase A card has quite a substantial amount of stuff. The phase B card has slightly less. And when we get through to phase E, you're either taking silver or people. Also, once you manage to get at least 1 card of all 7 colors, you will gain this card into your pile, which will give you 4 points at the end of the game. The second person to do it would gain that card, which is 3 points, and there's 2 points and 1 point as the cards below it. And just to run through what each of the other cards do when they're built, So these cards are the mines. When you place a mine in your estate, you will take 2 more of the silver cards and place them in your storage where you've been looking after them. The yellow cards are called knowledge cards. When you place one of these in your estate, so you will have had to come from here to there, you will gain 2 more workers. The number of workers you already have when you get that card doesn't matter. So if you already have 2, you still get another 2 of them by adding that card. The ships, or the blue cards, allow you to gain 1 good. These cards are the good, so you're choosing between one of these 2 goods. They're the same at the moment, but there's different shades of good which go with that. There are 3 different shades, and each of them use a different die number to be sold off. Pastures we did to take one of those animals. Castles, when you build a castle, you get to have another turn as if it's any die number that you've been played. And cloisters, you'll notice there's 6 points on the bottom of this card. It doesn't have any actual bonus, but what you can do is add it to any other type of card, and it is that type of card for the rest of the game. So if this player looked like that, he could add the cloister there, which would now get him the brown card for being the first player to do that, and he would get a bonus up there as talked about earlier. And the other action I've neglected before when talking about the actual actions that you can do with the card is, if this is the card that played, it doesn't matter what the number is on top. So you can play absolutely any card to convert workers and silver into victory points. The number of workers and silver must be divisible by 3. So theoretically, he could do 1 silver and 2 workers, or 1 worker and 2 silver, because that's what he's currently got. And you put all 3 of them back to their stacks and take 1 point. If you have 9, you can take 3 points. There's no limit to the number of things that you can do with that action. When you come to the end of the game, you're adding up all of the numbers on the bottom of the cards that are here, not the ones that are here. So everything that's actually been built, plus the points for any animals that you have, and whoever has the start play card in front of them will get another point as well. And that would be the end of the game. I hope that makes sense. I hope that that helps you get the Castles of Burgundy card game to the table. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be Gamesplayed, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.